With the iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max, you can record horizontal video with the selfie camera even while you're holding it vertically, which is exactly what I'm doing now. And this is all recorded on the iPhone 17 Pro. And for this whole video, in fact, I'm going to be using the iPhone 17 Pro microphone. So you can check out the audio quality as well. So I'm actually really impressed with the selfie camera. It's kind of something that doesn't really get talked about. And this new selfie camera has 18 megapixel sensor, and it's got better dynamic range, and there's less noise in the shadows. And we're going to look at all this kind of stuff. We're going to look at what's new on the iPhone 17 Pro. I'm going to compare it to my iPhone 16 Pro so you can see if it's worth the upgrade. And then we're going to go through a bunch of things and tips and tricks and how to record ProRes RAW, how to record OpenGate, how to get constant frame rate with your iPhone 17 Pro, which is something that you can't do with the 16 Pro, and a bunch of other stuff. So let's do it. So Apple have upgraded the cameras for the iPhone 17 Pro, but is it really worth it? Let's have a look. So we've got the Apple ProRes RAW, we've got the OpenGate, and we've got a new Apple Log 2, but recording them isn't straightforward. There's a couple of steps that you need to do. You can't just open up the regular camera app and start recording them. So we're going to look at that. And there's, apart from the 18 megapixel selfie camera, there's also a new 48 megapixel telephoto. So we're going to look at that as well.
So we don't need to keep saying Pro and Pro Max because, as with the previous models, the 17 Pro and Pro Max, they basically share identical chipsets, camera hardware, design, and camera features. The main differences between the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max are size, battery life, display, as well as storage options. The Pro Max is larger and it's heavier, and it also offers superior battery life. Also, only the Pro Max is available with a 2 terabyte storage option, as well as claiming the best battery life ever in an iPhone. And you get roughly an extra 6 hours depending on usage. And the Max has a 6.9-inch screen versus a 6.3-inch screen. So basically, I've got the iPhone 17 Pro here, but you can assume everything is basically the same for the Pro Max version, apart from what I just went through. So what's new? The telephoto lens jumps from a 12 megapixel 5 times 120mm camera on the iPhone 16 Pro series to a 48 megapixel telephoto, which is now on the 17 Pro models with 4 times and 8 times optical quality zoom. And this means all the 17 Pro rear cameras are now Fusion 48 megapixel cameras. So this change from a 5 times 120mm tele to a 4 times is said to be better suited to portraits because it's slightly wider at 100mm. And as well, the iPhone 16 Pro telephoto has a maximum of 5 times optical quality zoom, whereas the 17 Pro telephoto can get up to 8 times optical level zoom due to the extra megapixels. The new telephoto sensor is physically larger than the 16 Pro sensor. You've got a 1/2.5 inch versus a 1/3.06 inch. The new sensor actually has smaller pixels, but the 17 Pro compensates by using quad pixel tetraprism technology, which is basically just combining 4 smaller pixels into one larger pixel equivalent. The telephoto also comes with a new 3D sensor shift optical image stabilization, which improves performance in low light and also while zoomed in. So the front camera does see a pretty impressive step up, going from 12 megapixels to 18 megapixels, and it's actually the first square front camera sensor on an iPhone. And this design gives it a wider field of view and a higher resolution. And this actually allows us to take photos and videos in both portrait and landscape while we're holding the phone vertically, and vice versa.
This is the cinematic mode with the selfie camera of the iPhone 16 Pro. And this is the cinematic mode with the iPhone 17 Pro selfie camera. And you can see It's not blown out. In the 16 Pro, this was all blown out. And I think it does a little bit of a better job at mapping out your hair so that so it looks a little bit more realistic.
If you open the camera app and switch to the selfie camera, there's now a button by the record button. So it's like a portrait icon with two arrows. Tap that, and now it switches between landscape and portrait without turning the phone and without a loss of resolution. And you can also hold the phone horizontally and you can switch to vertical framing. And this feature works both in photo mode and video mode, and as well in cinematic mode. Also, the selfie camera comes with a new feature called Center Stage. And this new feature uses the large 18 megapixel front camera sensor, and it allows you to zoom in and out to help make sure everyone is in frame when you take a selfie photo. Also, it helps to keep you in the center of the frame when you're doing video calls. So if you just open the FaceTime app, Center Stage should be on by default. And if you want to turn it off, just tap the portrait icon in the corner and it's off. And if you want to enable it again, just tap it again. Now, unfortunately, you can't use this feature in the regular camera app for video, at the moment at least. Now, this is something that has gone under the radar a little bit. The iPhone 17 Pro can now shoot constant frame rate video when you're using the Blackmagic camera app, and probably other apps in the future. And this is something that the 16 Pro and earlier models can't do. The iPhone 17 Pro introduces ProRes RAW video recording. However, you're going to need an external SSD and you're going to need an app that supports this format. So at the moment, there's the free Final Cut Camera 2.0, so make sure that you update that, otherwise it's not going to give you the ProRes RAW. And also there's Blackmagic, again you're going to need to make sure it's updated, and I'm sure that there will be others in the future. So we now have the Open Gate format, which is a video recording feature, and that uses the entire camera sensor area. And you're going to get a 4:3 aspect ratio rather than the standard 16:9. The 17 Pro and Pro Max also bring us the new Apple Log 2 profile, which should improve on the original Apple Log by capturing an even wider dynamic range and color gamut, and also deliver more detail in the shadows and the highlights. Apple has also developed a smoother lens switching in video mode for the 17 Pro so that you can go from 1x to 24x while you're recording, and you can't really see it when it switches. Dual video recording is now supported so that you can record the selfie camera at the same time as the main, the ultra-wide, or the telephoto. And another feature that's been introduced with the iPhone 17 Pro is Gen Lock, and this allows multiple cameras, including multiple iPhone 17 Pros, to be precisely synchronized during video recording. So this ensures that the frame capture timing between all devices is perfectly aligned, and that makes it easier to switch between cameras or edit footage shot from different angles without worrying about sync issues. On the iPhone 17 Pro, Gen Lock is implemented through support in the Final Cut Camera 2.0 app. And also Blackmagic are bringing out the Camera Pro Dock, which is not out yet, but that supports this Gen Lock feature.
ProRes is a compressed RAW format that's developed by Apple, and it combines the flexibility of RAW video with the efficiency and the performance of the ProRes codec family. So there's two versions. We've got ProRes RAW and we've got ProRes RAW HQ, which obviously stands for high quality. The HQ version uses less compression and it results in higher data rates and better quality, but you're going to get larger files. So the main camera can record ProRes RAW in 4K up to 120 frames per second, but the ultra-wide and telephoto cameras max out at 60 frames per second for ProRes RAW. And the selfie and the digital crop lenses cannot record in ProRes RAW. So we're talking the 2x and the 8x. Recording in ProRes RAW disables image stabilization, so you're going to have to use a tripod or a gimbal if you want to avoid any kind of shaky footage. Now, ProRes RAW on the iPhone gives you great control in post. So it's going to make it easier to maximize the dynamic range, even if the sensor itself hasn't changed all that much. And this is also going to be useful for mixing iPhone footage with footage from other cameras.
Now, before you can record Apple ProRes RAW, you're going to need two things. First, you can't shoot this format using the regular camera app, so you're going to need to use a camera app that supports ProRes RAW. And the simplest option is to download the Final Cut Camera 2.0. But I'm sure most of you are going to be using the Blackmagic camera app, which has, obviously many more features. Second, you're going to need to connect your iPhone to an external SSD. So I'm going to use this Lexar ES5 1TB, and it's magnetic, so it sticks to the back of the iPhone using MagSafe. And then I'm just going to connect the provided cable between the drive and the SSD. Now, when I open the Final Cut camera app, it immediately connects and it's going to automatically start recording to the SSD without having to mess around locating the drive. And you can see at the bottom in the middle that it says Lexar, so you can tap that and you can use that to decide where to record the video. So I'm just going to leave it on Lexar. On the left, we have all the settings for LUT, FPS, resolution, and codec. So if we tap that and we switch to Apple ProRes RAW. And once you've selected RAW, you've got two resolution options. We've got the 4:3 open gate, and there's also a 17:9, which crops down to a widescreen ratio. And you can also choose a LUT preview here. So with Apple Log 2 to Rec 709 and Log 2 to HDR available. So it's just a preview and it's not going to be baked in. In the Blackmagic camera app, you're going to need to assign the SSD. So it's not going to do it automatically. Just open the settings, tap the Media tab, and then tap where it says Save Clips to, and then locate your SSD and open it. And now go to the Record tab, choose Apple ProRes RAW or RAW HQ. Now, if you want to shoot in OpenGate, go to Resolution, and you can choose it there. Tap Camera again, and now you can see that we have the 4:3 OpenGate ratio. Just look at the top there on the right, and it tells you that you're in OpenGate. And it also tells you the ratio below. Now, Blackmagic have also added a new anamorphic 2.0 setting. And this is just for iPhone at the moment anyway. And while 2.0, so 2 times anamorphics, do exist, there's none actually currently made for smartphones as far as I know. But what I do know is that a 2 times anamorphic combines well with the 4:3 OpenGate ratio. So, perhaps we will see some 2.0 anamorphics coming onto the market to be used with this new OpenGate ratio. Now, if we go to color space, we can choose between Apple Log HDR or the new Apple Log 2 HDR. And if we tap the LUT button, we can now apply these new Blackmagic LUTs that come with the app. Now go to the LUT tab in the settings, choose LUT Manager, and scroll down to Export LUT. Click that and you can download Apple Log 2 versions of all the LUTs so that you can import them into your editing software. So I've already made a video talking about these LUTs, so you can just go check that out if you want to know more. Things like how to bake the LUT in or just use it as a preview LUT. Okay, so when you switch to OpenGate or ProRes RAW, you're not going to get any real-time stabilization. And you can see in the Blackmagic app that the stabilization button is grayed out here. And that's because the iPhone 17 Pro disables both electronic and optical stabilization because it uses the entire sensor area. So you're not going to get any cropping margin for stabilization to use. So on the other hand, you can add stabilization when editing, but this will crop into the image. So if you really want to hold on to the maximum number of video pixels, then you can just use a tripod or a gimbal. Now, when you come to edit your OpenGate ProRes RAW, you will need a compatible editor. So you're not going to be able to just put it into something like CapCut. It's not going to work. But if you use Final Cut Pro, of course, or DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere, they can handle it. And as well, if you have the free version of DaVinci Resolve, you're not going to be able to edit the full OpenGate resolution. The full 4224 by 3024 ratio, which you get with OpenGate, is too much for the free version, which actually limits you to 4K. So, and actually, as I have the free version, because I haven't yet had the cash to go to the full version, I had to set DaVinci Resolve to 3018 by 2160 resolution, and that is like the maximum resolution that you can edit OpenGate in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. So normally all smartphones shoot variable frame rate video, and that can cause sync issues when you're using multiple cameras. But also variable frame rate video can cause syncing issues with audio, even if you're just using a single camera. So in my iPhone 16 Pro, if I go into the Blackmagic Camera app and go to Settings, then Camera, and then scroll down to Reference Source, you're going to see that it's grayed out here. So the iPhone 16 Pro can't do this, but with the iPhone 17 Pro, it isn't grayed out. And if I now choose Internal as the reference source, this selects the iPhone's internal clock as the timing master, and it's now shooting constant frame rate video. And thank you to Epic Tutorials for that tip. And I'm sure it's going to become available in other camera apps in time. When you're using the selfie camera in photo mode, there's a button that's beside the vertical to horizontal switch button. And this button zooms in and out. So you can use it to get closer, or you can zoom out to include more people. And you can actually just pinch with your fingers as well. Now, if you want the AI to automatically zoom out when it detects a face or faces, then tap the little portrait figure button at the side here, and then you can enable auto zoom and or auto rotate. So auto rotate basically just switches the camera orientation between portrait and landscape if the camera detects more people joining the frame. So if you have it in vertical framing and someone moves nearby, it's going to switch to landscape and then fit them into the frame. And one thing to bear in mind is that when you tap the manual zoom button here, it actually disables both these auto modes. So you're going to have to re-enable them again. To use the dual capture video, tap the 6 dots in the corner. On the right, tap dual capture, and now you get a picture-in-picture of the selfie camera. And you can drag this to any of the corners if you want to place it differently. And as well, you can actually choose any of the rear cameras to use as your main video. To switch out of this mode, just tap the yellow dual capture button, which is now visible below the 6 dots. Now, on the downside, you can't choose any camera combination as you can with the Samsung. And also, you can't choose to record 2 separate videos like you can with the Samsung, or change to a split view. But apart from that, it works very well. Press the camera control button to open the camera app. Press again to use the controller as a shutter or record button. Now, like with the regular shutter button, if you're in photo mode and you press and you hold it, it's going to start recording a quick video. But if you press gently on the control until you feel this little click, it's going to open up the camera control island. And if you find that bit too tricky, you can just make a long slide motion across the control instead. Now, if we do a light press and hold, the camera locks exposure and focus, and this is going to remain as you continue the light press. But as soon as you release your finger, it goes back to auto mode. Slide your finger over the camera control to adjust whatever setting you're on. And in this case, I'm just switching between the cameras. Now, if you press gently twice on the camera control so that you can feel it click twice, it's going to open up the menu of different settings. And now you can slide your finger on the camera control and choose a setting. And another gentle press here just selects it, or you can just wait until it is selected after a few seconds. And now you can slide your finger on the camera control again to adjust the setting. And actually, this island itself can be used to change your settings, so you can just slide your finger on the island. And some of these modes you're going to find are photo only, so if you switch to video mode, and now double gentle press the camera control, and swipe to change the mode, you're going to see that some of the modes are darker, and these are the photo only modes, so you can't select them in video mode. Now, if you find that it's a little bit annoying because you keep accidentally pressing the camera control button and opening the camera, you can go into settings, camera, and then camera control and choose double click. And this means that you need to double click the camera button to open the camera, and that's going to prevent it opening by accident. Most of the time, I would imagine. Or the other option is just to disable the button from opening the camera completely. In camera control settings, tap camera at the top, and now you can choose which app the camera control button opens. So, for example, I could choose the Blackmagic Camera app instead, or if you choose none at the bottom, then the button isn't going to open any apps. So that means you can't accidentally open the camera app by pressing the button. But in this setting, once you have the camera app open, you can still use the control. It's just that it's not going to open the camera, that's all. Now, if you place your iPhone in a clamp, like on a tripod or a gimbal, you might find that the clamp triggers the camera control button and it starts recording when you don't want it to. In that case, you're probably going to want to switch off the camera control completely. So go into camera control settings, scroll to the bottom and tap on accessibility. At the top, you can find a master control button. So just toggle that off, and that just means that the camera control button is completely switched off now. And here you can actually customize how your camera control button responds. You can adjust how lightly you need to press for a light press click, for example. You can change how quickly you need to light press for a double click, as well as a double regular click. And you can use this graphic in the middle of the screen because it lights up when you light press, so you can practice and then adjust the settings until you get it right. Now, if you have this require screen on enabled here, then pressing the camera button only opens the camera when the screen is on. So in that case, it would be one click to turn on the screen and then another click to open the camera. So this is a little bit different if you have the double click set, as we just looked at, because then it's just going to open the camera with a double click and it's going to ignore this require screen on thing. Now, if you toggle off camera adjustments, the camera control now just works as a button to open your camera or start virtual intelligence or to take a photo or record video, but you can also customize which controls you have and which order they're in. Tap customize and at the top you can switch off the light press, or you can switch off the swipe, or you can switch them both off. Below you've got the controls, and if you tap the blue tick, it's going to enable or disable each control. If you tap and hold the three bars, you can drag the setting to a new position, and then this is going to change its position in the camera control menu. At the bottom you can toggle off the clean preview. So with this off, when you're changing the settings, your on-screen settings are going to stay there. And if you have this on, then when you're changing the settings, all the sort of icons and UI stuff is going to clear away and give you a cleaner screen to look at. So you can choose that, whatever your preference is. Now, if you don't want holding a light press to lock exposure and focus, then you can obviously toggle that off here. Now, the bottom switch here relates to Apple's visual intelligence, which uses the iPhone's camera and AI to scan and understand and provide information about the world around you. And you can also use it to talk to ChatGPT, or you can use it to search Google for an image and see what comes up. Now, the thing is that if you have the camera open and you long press the camera control button, you're just going to start recording video, and it's not going to open visual intelligence. So in fact, what you have to do is close the camera and now long press on the button. And there you have it. Who says that iPhones are designed to be simple to use? I mean, I guess they are if you only use like 3% of the features. Anyway, tap the shutter and it's going to take a photo, a sort of temporary photo. And if you now tap this Ask button, ChatGPT analyzes your image and it gives you information about what you're looking at. But if you tap Search instead, the iPhone searches the image via Google and it's going to find a similar looking image or images. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few little tips and tricks here that you might not know about with the iPhone 17 Pro camera app. So in the app, when you start recording video, you get a small white shutter button which appears on the screen. So tapping this button lets you capture a still photo and you don't have to stop recording. If you want to pause recording, obviously press the pause button beside the record button. And you just keep pressing to pause and unpause recording, and everything's going to be stitched together into one video file. When you want to stop recording completely and create the actual file, just press the main record button again. To change resolution, frame rate, and format settings, tap the box with those settings. And now you can choose whether to shoot regular video, log, or HDR, which is Dolby Vision. You can choose HD or 4K resolution, as well as frame rates from 24 frames per second to 120 frames per second. So you might wonder what these dots are, which are beside each setting. And basically, these indicate your default camera app settings. So for example, I can switch it to 120 frames per second in HD, but the dots stay at 30 frames per second and 4K. And that's because in camera settings, my default is set to 30 frames per second 4K. Now when I close the app and I open it again, it's going to reset to the settings with the dots. Now if I enable log, the dot moves. So that means when I close the app and reopen it, it's going to be in the log format. But because I have HDR disabled in the settings, I can switch on HDR here and shoot Dolby Vision, but if I close and open the app again, it's going to default back to wherever the dot was. Now if you want to change these defaults, go into Settings, Camera, and then Record Video, and change to the settings that you're going to use most of the time. If you want to shoot in 25 frames per second, then enable PAL formats below. So I'm going to enable PAL, and then I'm going to tap 4K and 25 frames per second. And then I'm going to go back into the camera app, and you can see that we now have a new row of settings here for PAL frame rates. And the dot is beside my new default, which is 25 frames per second. If you want to open extra settings, like timer, aspect ratio, live, exposure, and so on, then tap the 6 dots and tap away to close it. But another way to open these settings is just to tap on the mode selector itself. So this new mode selector for iOS 26 is bigger, but at the same time, you only see 2 modes. With the old iOS, you could see more modes, so you actually knew which way to swipe to get to the mode that you wanted. To see more modes in iOS 26, all you have to do is long press on the mode and it's going to stretch out so that you can see more modes again. So I've been a filmmaker for decades, and I even made a feature film that we shot on a camcorder and we premiered it at the BFI IMAX. And all this knowledge that I've acquired from shooting with kind of consumer cameras, I put it into shooting with smartphones. And I've even created a book, which you probably already know about, but if you don't, check it out. And I've even updated it with ProRes RAW and iPhone 17 Pro stuff on OpenGate. And I've also got a little companion book to go with it if you just want to understand more about smartphones and why some are better than others for shooting video. But if you prefer like a video course where I take you through things step by step, then come over to Patreon. The good thing now is that you don't have to subscribe, you don't have to pay a monthly fee. There's one-off fees, so you can just pay for a single course, one fee, that's it. So we've got the really for beginners that takes you from the very first steps to creating a sequence, like a little video sequence. And we've also got a little bit more advanced is the composition and framing course. Now it's more than just putting things in the right place, when you're framing, because that's just like photography, isn't it? So this course actually is more of a storytelling course or a kind of sequence construction course. It's, even if you're not making a short film, you still want an engaging video that takes you from one place to another place. And this course is all about how to do that. And it's like, again, I take you from the beginning, take you through the steps and the stages, things to think about so that you can create something that's, really cool looking. And we've had some students who've taken this course and, the videos they've sent me have been like dramatically different from how they were when they started out. But that's it from me for this video. See you in the next one.